this problem, we want to find the second derivative, then set that equal to 0 and solve it. So we've got f of x is equal to x times the square root of x squared minus 4. Okay, well, I'm going to rewrite this as x times x squared minus 4 to the 1/2 power. We don't want radicals. Now for our first derivative, this will be the product rule. This will be our p and this will be our q. Now we need p prime. Derivative of x is 1. And we need q prime. This is a chain rule, specifically a general power rule. We got parentheses to a power. You take your power, put it out in front. What's inside your parentheses remains as is. Lower your power by 1. So that's 1/2 minus 1. And then you multiply it times the derivative of what's inside the parentheses. So that's going to give us 1/2 x squared minus 4. 1/2 minus 1 is negative 1/2. The derivative of x squared minus 4 gives us 2x. Now 1/2 times 2, they cancel. Well, actually, let me rearrange it. 1/2 times 2x, and then x squared minus 4 to the negative 1/2. I just want to make sure everybody sees that. 1/2 times 2, those are going to cancel away. And I want to put this back into fraction form. So the x is going to go up on top, and this part with the negative exponent I'm going to take down to the denominator. The reason why we do that is if you take something opposite of where it's at in the fraction, the sign of the exponent changes. So the x squared minus 4 to the negative 1/2 power becomes x squared minus 4 to the positive 1/2 power. And that's q prime. Okay. Well, our formula is p prime q plus p q prime. So for our first derivative, p prime we said was 1 times q, which is x squared minus 4 to the 1/2 power, plus p, which is x, times q prime, which is x over x squared minus 4 to the positive 1/2 power. This becomes x squared minus 4 to the 1/2 power all over 1, and x times x is x squared over x squared minus 4 to the 1/2 power. Now I put it in that form because I wanted to merge these into a single fraction so we can take our next derivative. We have to get a common denominator. Since this is 1, then our common denominator is the other one, which is x squared minus 4 to the 1/2 power. So I'm going to rewrite each fraction with that new denominator. Now our second fraction already has that denominator, so we don't need to change anything there. That just stays x squared. Now my first fraction, I multiply the bottom part by x squared minus 4 to the 1/2. I have to multiply the top part by it. So I'll take x squared minus 4 to the 1/2 times x squared minus 4 to the 1/2. Now since these are both x squared minus 4 to a power, I can add the exponents. 1/2 plus 1/2 gives you 2/2 or 1. So this just becomes x squared minus 4 over x squared minus 4 to the 1/2 plus x squared over x squared minus 4 to the 1/2. Okay, they have the same denominators now, so I can merge together the top parts. X squared plus x squared is 2x squared minus 4 over x squared minus 4 to the 1/2 power. Well, that's our first derivative. Our second derivative, we're going to have to use a quotient rule. We've got something divided by something else. So the top part's going to be our p, and the bottom part will be our q. So we need p prime. The derivative of 2x squared minus 4 is 4x. We also need q prime. But compare this q here, x squared minus 4 to the 1/2, to this q, x squared minus 4 to the 1/2. They're the same, aren't they? So our q prime is going to be the same. We could go through the steps, but they'd be the exact same ones we did right here. So q prime is going to equal to x over x squared minus 4 to the positive 1/2. Now we're going to do something a little bit different with it formula-wise than up above. So our formula for the quotient rule is p prime q minus p q prime over q squared. So for our second derivative, p prime was 4x times q, which was x squared minus 4 to the 1/2, minus p, so 2x squared minus 4, times q prime, which is x over x squared minus 4 to the 1/2, all over q squared, which is x squared minus 4 to the 1/2 raised to the second power. Okay, this is going to give us 4x x squared minus 4 to the 1/2 minus, I'm going to go ahead and put this 2x squared minus 4 up on top of the x. So we got x times 2x squared minus 4 all over x squared minus 4 to the 1/2 power. Down here, when you raise one exponent to another exponent, you multiply the exponents. 1/2 times 2 gives you 1. And looks like I'm out of space here. So let me write this down. 4x times x squared minus 4 to the 1/2 minus x times 2x squared minus 4 over x squared minus 4 to the 1/2 all over x squared minus 4 to the first power. Okay, so let's continue on with our simplifying. So we've got 4x x squared minus 4 to the 1/2 minus x times 2x squared minus 4 over x squared minus 4 to the 1/2 all over x squared minus 4 to the first power. Okay, now simplifying this. We got a fraction inside of a fraction. That's called a complex fraction. Specifically, it's complex rational when we start talking about the x's in here, but we'll say complex fraction. Easiest way to simplify a complex fraction is to multiply everything by the LCM of all your inner denominators. I'm talking about this inside fraction here has its own denominator. That's our inner denominator. So we're going to multiply everything by x squared minus 4 to the 1/2. So we got 4x x squared minus 4 to the 1/2 times x squared minus 4 to the 1/2 minus x 2x squared minus 4 over x squared minus 4 to the 1/2 times x squared minus 4 to the 1/2 over x squared minus 4 to the first power times x squared minus 4 to the 1/2 power. When I say multiply times everything, this is considered one group here because everything's multiplication. 4 times x times this. This is considered one group because it's a single fraction. And then this is considered one group here. So that's how I figured what to multiply by. So we've got 4x. Now x squared minus 4 to the 1/2 times x squared minus 4 to the 1/2. Since these are both x squared minus 4s to a power, I can add my exponents. So that's going to give us x squared minus 4. 1/2 plus 1/2 gives us 2/2 or 1. Minus, over here, the x squared minus 4 1/2. X squared minus 4 to the 1/2. It cancels this x squared minus 4 to the 1/2. So that leaves us x 2x squared minus 4. Down below here, we got x squared minus 4 to a power times x squared minus 4 to a power. So we add the exponents. 1 plus 1/2 gives us 3/2. Now up on top, Let's see, this factors here. Probably wouldn't help me a whole lot though, but this other one I can bring a 2 out. So this gives us 4x times x squared minus 4 minus, and factor out GCF, so bring 2 out, so 2x, and that leaves us x squared minus 2 all over this. Now this is considered one group, everything's multiplication, and this is considered one group, everything's multiplication. Now I could factor out the x squared minus 4, that's x plus 2 times x minus 2, but it wouldn't be able to factor anything out of here, so it doesn't benefit us in this problem. Now I want to factor out GCF. 4 and 2, I see they both have a 2 in common, and they both have an x in common. Now 4 divided by 2 is 2, that x is gone, and we left with x squared minus 4. Minus, that 2's gone, that x is gone, so we're left with x squared minus 2 with parentheses around it. All over x squared minus 4 to the 3/2. Well, I'm going to get rid of parentheses, combine together like terms, see where it heads. 2 times x squared is 2x squared. 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. The negative out in front of the parentheses flips the sign of everything inside. So the x squared becomes a negative x squared. The negative 2 becomes a positive 2. Over this. And then we've got 2x, combined together like terms. 2x squared minus x squared gives us x squared. Negative 8 plus 6, or negative 8 plus 2 gives us negative 6. Over this. That's about as good as it gets in terms of factoring what they have in common up on top. So now the next set of instructions set this equal to 0. So we've got 2x, x squared minus 6 over x squared minus 4 to the 3/2 equal to 0. Now if we're truly just setting it equal to 0 and solving it, then the denominator always disappears. So that leaves us 2x times x squared minus 6 equal to 0. Reason why is because we could multiply both sides by x squared minus 4 to the 3/2, and it would cancel on this side, and 0 times anything is 0. Now this is already in perfect form. The zero factor property says if you get 0 on one side, you factor the other side, you set each factor equal to 0. So I'll set 2x equal to 0, and I'll set x squared minus 6 equal to 0. Now 2x equals 0, I divide both sides by 2, and we get our first answer, which is x equals 0. Now this other one, we're going to take negative 6 to the right side, and it becomes a positive 6, and we're going to use a square root property. Square root property says if you have something squared equal the other side, you drop your squared, and you put a plus or minus square root around the other side. Now that I can't simplify the square root of 6, so those are our other two answers. So we got 3 answers.